Well, I'll hand it off to Erica. Thank you so much again for coming. And yeah, she's going to do something about APIs.
Yes. So hello everyone, my name is Erica Dietrich. I will introduce myself in a second. As mentioned, I'm Dawson's sister and Brian Dietrich's daughter, if you've had any classes with him. And yeah, I got invited by Sofia to teach you all about APIs. The reason that I wanted to come talk to you about APIs is because virtually no career in tech will involve not needing to know about APIs or how to actually use them in your applications, yet I did not learn about it in university at all. So I think this will actually help prep you for real world development, because we all want a job, I assume. Okay, but who am I and why should you trust me with your precious API education? Well, again, my name's Erica. I go by Erica the Dev online. Today I'm a technical content creator, so I teach people from various disciplines and backgrounds about how to code and how to upskill in their careers on a daily or weekly basis. However, I do have an actual career behind me, so I've been in the tech industry in various roles for like 7 years now. I did graduate from ECU the second time with the Masters of Software Engineering. I was telling a couple of people I was a bio major undergrad, so you guys are already way ahead of me here. For any of you in networking or IT world, I do have my CCNA, and I was also awarded a Distinguished Speaker Award at Cisco Systems 3 times last year. So I tried to communicate well. Well, all the credentials aside, do not be fooled. I am just a person. So before I went into tech and after I got smacked in the face by life graduating with a biology degree, thinking I would study rare plant species or save the environment, I ended up at Starbucks among other places, which was great, but not exactly where I wanted to be. So again, ended up back at ECU, and I know the late nights, and I remember how it feels learning everything for the first time, even though APIs are very common in the world of software development, right? Like no developer has not used an API, and you get really good at it in your specific language. Everybody starts out learning this the first time and kind of like beating their head against the wall. So I can empathize. And I did want to try to make this as hands-on as possible. Did everybody bring a laptop by any chance? Okay, awesome. I want to try to speak as little as possible and let you actually do the crap, because that's what matters, right? At the end of the day, what you should know about my teaching style is I'm very big on practical software development, so you can Google, what does API stand for and stuff, right later or whatever, ask ChatGPT. But are you gonna actually understand like what an API is, why you would use one, how to do it hands-on? Like that's what I think is gonna help you in the real world. So, let me catch my breath for just a second. I forgot to mention, I'm 4.5 months pregnant, so I just had like a really big lunch. I'm also not about to pass out. I'm just losing some lung space. Okay, so what is an API? This is the simplest definition I can give you. So with any product or service, right, even if it's a free website like, I don't know, YouTube or something, that is a product that someone has developed, right? There's 2 ways to use a product typically. One, like if we think about Google Maps, is directly through its website or application. This is what you usually do on the computer, on your mobile phone, whatever. In technical world, right, we call this a GUI or an interface or a front end, which is the part of an application you can see. However, most products also have something called an API. And this is where you can access a lot of that same functionality, but programmatically. So basically what we say is that you can make an API call in your code in order to do the same thing, like populate a Google Maps map. So why, and this is an example of like the documentation for Google Maps, right? So this is actually using the interface. On the right are links to their documentation where you find out, oh, how do I embed a Google Maps interactive map in my application? How would I make that API call? So in simplest terms, right, it's functionality the developer purposely made publicly accessible through a specific URL. So you don't just get to willy-nilly decide like what part of an application you can use in your code. A developer specifically says, hey, they can access X, Y, and Z in these specific ways and at this URL. But again, why would we use an API? Why is this something that again, 99% of developers are gonna use in their day-to-day? Well, the first reason is because you're gonna wanna use other apps' functionality within your own. So when you've like logged into an application with Google or Facebook or something, that's an example of an API call, right? They use those companies' API in order to let you to log in using their websites. We talked about the Google Maps API, right? Like let's pretend you're doing web development for a hair salon, right? And people want to know, oh, how do I find this hair salon? Well, you're going to use the Google Maps API in your website and give them directions, right? Essentially, we all rely on other application services in the real world today. You also might use it to automate a task. So when we talk about automation, a lot of times we are talking about using the API of a product. So I don't know, I'm trying to give an example. Like think of your email. Like if you wanted to automatically delete emails from Erica Dietrich, right? Like you could find the inbox API for that particular email provider and automate that task. Finally, and this is really important in software engineering, it is to not reinvent the wheel. So there's many ways in software engineering that we prevent ourselves from reinventing the wheel. One of them is APIs. If somebody's already doing something really well, why would you build it yourself? Like, why would you build the next Google Maps? Google Maps works, I don't know what your opinion is, but I think pretty well. Any questions? Okay. So this is my husband, Ryan. So we both met at Cisco Systems. We're a tech nerd dream couple. He's also an engineer of sorts, sort of a software engineer. And he has created an example API server that we're going to be working with today. Again, this is supposed to be very, very much introductory, and I might give you example advanced tasks later, but Ryan, I'll let you.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm squatting so I can actually look at everything here. We're using Node, which is just JavaScript on your server instead of in the browser. And I do that because I write full stack applications top to bottom using JavaScript. So that's one of the main reasons why I do it. But in here we use a library called Express, and that's what's actually going to be allowing us to have routes for our API. So if you go to a web page and you see that it says like /about or /home, APIs have that same concept where it's like, you know, hey, /API /students, /API there's a concept of a spec file that gives information about what an API has available for people to use. So that'll be like another endpoint that people are able to use.
So the point of this, right, is that him as the developer, right, like let's pretend that he had like a student registration app or something, right, and that's a lot of stuff that you can't see, but behind the scenes, he has also built this API where, right, hang on, stop somewhere. So again, you don't need to understand the code, but in this block of code, he is defining an API call that occurs at this URL, right? We talked about how APIs are about knowing which URL to access and how to access them in order to get the same information you would through an interface. So he's defined this here as all you need to know, and again, he's written this in Node.js. That's the great thing. It doesn't matter what access you are making, what language you are making the API call in. It also doesn't matter what language the API is in, right? You are using a standard protocol basically to communicate. And can you just go through what the API calls are for?
Yeah, sure. So for this application, this might be something that might be better off for later on, but you know, there's multiple different functions or like types of requests that you can make to APIs. So
oh yeah, okay. I'll show you then. I got a slide.
Okay, cool. That's perfect.
Yeah. So he'll show you the specific examples. I'll show you the slide really quick. All right, types of API calls, right? So you don't just kind of call out to the API and it knows exactly what you want to do, right? So we talked about how this is a standard protocol. And in the standard protocol, there are these I call them action words because again, you can learn a technical term later, it's an HTTP verb. But with your API call, you can retrieve information or something, you can create something of your own, update it or delete it. There's actually a few more API calls than this, but these are the main ones that you're going to use on a daily basis. So every time you make an API call, like let's pretend with a student, right, in his student API example, you need to tell the server, do you want to create a new student in the system? Do you want to update their email address? Do you want to delete them entirely? They don't know without the verb in place. So that verb will determine what the server does. And I'll go ahead and go through this too before I let Ryan show you the API calls that he made available in the server. API calls, again, I'm giving you the very intro version, right? Because they do get a lot more complicated and a lot of it depends on a specific product's documentation. But this is the recipe you're gonna follow every time you are interested in doing API calls with a product, right? Again, first you're gonna read the documentation. Some of this is reliable when you use AI and just ask it for this stuff. Sometimes it's not, it depends on what domain you're in. But it's gonna tell you exactly what those URLs are, what other information might be required in the call. We're not gonna go over this today, but just like you have to log into most applications or websites, you have to log in, so to speak, to an API, right? Like, if you're accessing, I don't know, like your emails, like we talked about in the Gmail example, it has to know who you are and that you are who you say you are. So there's typically an authentication function. You then have to choose your action that you're gonna take, which is the HTTP verb that we just discussed before. You have any necessary information that you need to send, you use doing JSON. So we will get into JSON, but all you need to know now is the standard way to communicate this, right? Just how there's a standard way to program things in different languages, it's just a specific format that it's expecting to send and receive these calls in. So if you're creating a new student, right, it needs to know what is the student's name, what is their email address. If you're retrieving a student, you don't need to study any information. And you need to expect to get JSON back. And why is this? You need to know, hey, what do I want out of that JSON object in my code? Like, what am I doing with this? How do I read it? It really depends on what you're trying to do. So Ryan, let's have you show them Postman and show them the API calls in there, because I feel like it's easier to read.
Sure.
And there's less focus on Node. But if you want to go ahead and get started on the hands-on portion, I didn't know if people were gonna code when I came in here because people were at such different levels. But we were gonna ask you to install software called Postman. So Postman is used for a lot of different things when it comes to APIs, but one of the really common uses of Postman is to like test API calls. Like if you wanna know what's going to happen when you use the Google Maps API get call, right? You would test it in Postman without having to write a bunch of code to have to handle that request and response. So by downloading that today, you get to learn that software and it helps anybody who doesn't already know how to code.
And we have a live version of this server up right now, and it has a README. So if you look up there, there's a URL. You can go to that URL and get the README. And
a README is an instructions file.
Exactly, and it has a like how-to on how you can actually interact with this and use it using the terminal. If you're on a Windows computer, I'm sorry I didn't write commands for Windows, but if you're on Linux or Mac, it should work just fine. So that's there for you if you want to use that. And first we can go over to, well.
So this is Postman. So if you guys want to go ahead and sign up, the browser version should be fine. If you don't want to have to download the desktop app, it should hopefully be quick. But this is also a really good visual way to see how the API calls are made and what we're getting back. So you can see over here, he's already created a bunch of API requests in Python. You can see the HTTP verbs up there, like the gets, the posts, the puts, and then he's named them something that means something to him, right? And then over here on the right, this is where we actually create the request and response. So we've got our drop down where we choose our verb, the specific URL. Again, we always have a specific URL. Sometimes you need to modify it with an ID or something. Right now we're keeping it simple. You choose raw for the data type instead of doing an encoded data type. Thank you, Ryan. On the very right, you make sure JSON is in the dropdown because the vast majority of API calls are going to be using JSON. But again, check the documentation to make sure. And then this is where we're going to actually write our JSON and receive our response. Does anybody want a couple minutes for installing, or can I just get like a hand if you're ready? Okay, let's give just like 2 minutes. Have any of you used Postman before? No? Okay. I'm so glad, because like I don't want to come in and teach you like boo. So I'm glad this is useful.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college, we didn't learn any of these tools, and these are what people use in industry. So it will be very useful.
No, exactly. A big part of my platform online is that there's like such a big disconnect between what you learn in college and what's actually useful to you on the job. So one day I want to like make content that universities can use that teach the actual industry skills for some of the classes. But for now, it's YouTube and all that.
Okay. So this one doesn't matter as much. This.
Well, hang on. Then we get to give them 2 minutes. Okay, well, you can mention that when we run the get calls.
Cool.
Thank you. Do all of you want to be software developers when you graduate? Does anyone not want to be a software developer, or like doesn't want to code day to day? Yeah?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah? There's a lot of jobs in tech, and also some where you like code, but not like a software developer code. But even if you're in a non-coding role or even a non-technical role, a lot of them do like technical-ish interviews. And again, like APIs are something that you want to not feel totally lost about. Can I get another check? Hands up if you're ready. Okay, I think we're more people. I think we're at a good point. Let me just explain the base URL and then I'll let you go through. Okay. So this URL that Ryan has up now, right? This is the base URL for this particular server. And every specific functionality that we want to get will be tacked onto this. So again, this has all been specified in code. If you were using a product's API, you look at their documentation for this, but everything's going to be this blah, 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 .app/API/ and then like retrieve student / whatever it is, right? But you're always going to use this as a base. And then he's going to take you through a couple example calls.
Yep. So this base URL here, generally it doesn't return anything. For this example, it does. It's going to tell you what the other API endpoints that exist. So in Postman, you can, so I'm currently in a collection. That's what I have. So what you could do is you could also create yourself a new blank collection by clicking on the plus sign on the top left, and then blank collection. You can name it something, and then once you're in there, you will click on the plus sign to add a request. Then whatever you want. I've already created one for this called get base URL. You'll have the type set to be a get here, and then you're going to put in our base URL, which is this https://ecu-acm-api.
Maybe we can put that in the chat too, like, or not everyone else is in the Teams room, are they?
I can put it in, if everybody's on the Discord server, I can put it in the.
Oh yeah, that'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you've got this in here, with a plain get, you can even leave the body set to none and just click on send.
Because you're not sending anything, right? You're just retrieving information that's already there.
Exactly. So most times gets will not have a body that is sent, so you don't need to set anything there. However, you can do that. It is allowed, but generally it's not done.
and this is the response, right? So again, the response is going to completely depend on what the API call is that you ran and for what product you're doing. So whatever the field and outputs of those fields will be is dependent, again, on what the developer set up. But what's important to note here is, again, this is typical JSON structure with the curly brace start, the curly brace end. Fields are in between quotation marks, and then that colon, and then the data.
So we have two endpoints. We have a /students, and then we have a /students /: ID. So that's something in APIs where if you want to look at something that has a specific ID, so you have a database, or even an array, and say you want to get the 25th of something in an array, you would say /students /25, and it'll get the 25th item in that array, or the 24th zero index, whatever, depending on the language you're using. And we'll go over that in a little bit, but right now it's telling you that we have these two endpoints that we're able to use.
And before we move further, because I want them to try to challenge themselves, I don't want to give them all the answers.
Okay.
Can you guys try doing a get API call for all students and let us know if you get back student names? And if you do, then I'm gonna put you to the test. And if you don't get it after the next 1 minute, someone be brave to ask the question if that'd be possible.
Yeah.
Again, this is all stuff that you would typically be doing in code, but a lot of times we want to test what an API is going to do before we put in that effort.
Did you change it to JSON before? I don't know, I missed that, yeah. How do you do that?
So you click on draw as the option, and then right here on the right side, you just make sure that's set to JSON. And it should default to that, and I'm actually gonna try a get with it set as JSON for the body, and with the body being empty. And it should still work, yeah, it does.
So when you keep saying the body, that's what I meant by send information in the call. The technical term for that is within the body.
Yep. Something else to know, you're using this tool, and you're probably thinking, oh, well, how can I translate this to your code or your terminal, something like that. Somewhere in here, there's an option to turn it into code. You just have to remember where it is. I think it's this. Yeah, here we go. So all the way on the right side, there's this little a code icon. You can click on it and then select what languages you might want to export it as. So if I'm doing
Do Python if that's okay.
yeah,
That's what I'm doing then.
whatever that is. Python request is a very common library to use. And here we go. It's made a little script for you and how you're going to make the call in Python.
Okay, can I get a hands up? Was everyone able to run that call? Are people lost? Yes, we're all good?
Yeah, awesome. So
let's, in case someone didn't get it, let's run the get all students so people know what they should have got back.
Yep. So I'm in the get all students API call that I created within my collection here. And at the end, I just appended /students. And when I click on send, I get back an array, first of all, with 2 objects in it. And we see that they have an ID, a name, an email, and the course that they're supposedly enrolled in. So now with this data, we know that they have an ID, and I mentioned earlier that we have another API endpoint where we can get students by their ID. Do you guys want to try looking at that? We currently only have 2, but there can potentially be more.
Yeah, go ahead and show them that one too, and then we'll let them do the others.
Okay. So getting a student by a specific ID, with how this server is set up, we've got our /students, and at the end of that, we just add the ID of our student. So in my case, I'm putting 1, and I should get back John Doe. That's my dad. So I do get back John Doe, and if you change this to a 2, I get back Jane Smith. And theoretically, I should not get anything back or anything else. So I get message student not found if I go anything farther than the 2 that are currently in there, because I only have a 1 and a 2 ID.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. What do you want to do next?
So, we've done the get, did you have a question? Okay. We've done the get API call, and now I want to challenge you guys to try to do the other calls yourself. We'll walk around the room and help people or answer questions. But I'd like you to try to create your own student. Now, again, if this was a real product, you would be looking through.
did you
want to ask something?
No. I just figured out, I was trying to figure out how to do the post call on my code on my own for like the past 5 minutes, and I just got it to work out a typo in the API.
There you go. Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah, congrats.
Look,
Good job.
okay, so you can answer people's questions too then, even better. You know what, I don't really remember what I was saying, but let's try doing a post, right? So, what I was saying is we don't have documentation because this is not a real product. So you're gonna wanna use our example here, right? We know that these are the fields in the student JSON object. So these are gonna be what's required when you create your own student. And what was your name?
Keone.
Keone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just like Keone did. And Ryan, without showing them how to do the call, can you give them the correct URL?
Oh yeah. So if you go back to our base URL here, it has this right here, this /students.
So
And
you
you'll
use
make a
that
post
same.
for it. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So you don't usually make separate API endpoints for each type of HTTP request. So if you have a post, a put, delete, you're not going to make a like students delete, students post,
That's
student
very
update,
true.
something like that. It's all going to be on the one API endpoint. So students, and then you'll have post, get, put, delete, all of them for that one endpoint. And I'll show you this in the code after you guys actually like go through and do this.
All right, so a quick 2-minute thing, and we'll just kind of walk around if that's okay,
Sure.
and make sure people can do this one. If Keone, if you feel like, if you're not already buzzing ahead doing the other ones,
Oh no, I'm good.
you're welcome to help too. And we're using posts.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I got that too, for the API.
Oh yeah.
Next, 5.
Right, so you have done a get, so that's awesome, and now you can create another matrix.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Yes, that's your ID. That's your. So. Wait, where was that?
Now we're gonna do a post.
And just make sure it's not the same.
And you're gonna use that same URL.
Well, you can do it. You do that already.
Yeah.
It should say.
Okay.
Sure.
And again, it's on the wiki page. Okay, and now I'll leave you to see if you can write the JSON. So I will go ahead and tell you, we'll set our body to JSON so that it knows that's the kind of data that we want to work with. And then you're on JSON. Okay, perfect. And now in here, try writing your own student using the fields you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hey, Jason. Hey. Y'all doing okay? Oh, no worries. So you already did the post?
Oh,
Ooh, okay, yeah, so you just press /8.
so that is something that's dependent on how it's
Okay.
I do it this way.
And so because you are creating a student, it's
But
expected
if you want to write it,
otherwise it doesn't create.
it's
So it's only yep, you've got JSON. Now you can create your own student. And you'll just use the same fields that we were using above. Let me put it back.
So change that to post, right?
And to it. It probably just probably doesn't take any years.
There's that JSON, those JSON fields.
So yeah, so I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, you have to print it.
Yeah.
You have to format it as place.
We've got a lot of people going through.
Perfect.
I showed you. You just, see how it has a bracket and then it's like, you just dump, you put the ID part, you put the name, put in the email, and top it up.
No, you're good. It doesn't matter. I was saying it's it's just like, hey, this is your item. And that's all dependent on how the server but on the first
And we're not
Just like that.
and then, so now you need to fill in data.
also make sure that the vast majority of APIs don't keep back and forth using JSON. Okay. So that's why we've got that clicked. And then in here is where you're going to create that JSON. Okay. So in your get, again, usually you don't need to put in your so you'll look at that and say, oh, these are the fields required
And you don't
for
get a
your
response.
object. So
Initial
I gotta make sure to put those in my get. Okay. That's why I'll let you guys try that.
Exactly, that's why I was filling it in, it's all like numerical.
Do you want anything else? Okay, awesome.
Perfect. Okay, so the server's actually going to be because we're just working on and we're trying to put it and then when they get it, we're going to use it to return back a response saying to make a post, you can add it and here's your so yeah, if you go ahead and try it, your 14 instead of 15. And now what you do is to kind of like validate that you're in there. Exactly. You do it again. So check that Hello. How's it going? Yeah? Okay. Just like
And a real world application.
Okay, so this is the first test. And now we want to add something, right? So what we can do is we have a post set up for this same.
So now you're
We take one of these without the
Sorry.
there you go.
You can use it in the browser.
And then body.
If you sign up for just
That and make sure and the reason why we are creating the idea is because the server doesn't care what I do with it, it's going to create its own. You don't need a pen. Whatever.
Need anything?
And then you can take that same one that we used for the get.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. No problem.
Oh, sorry, that was right. And I got back. So it's like, hey, I filled in this person. I need you. If you go back to your get here, you want to validate that it actually happened. So like, yeah, sure, it said that it was successful, but is it actually in this place? You click on send, because this is going to grab every single person that's in this.
Oh, you came in later. Okay. So you've already got posted.
And you were number 19, I think. Is this actually?
So starting your TV.
Well, this is a limitation of my server. That's why. Let's send again. This collection you can just read it. So now you're free. We're gonna get
You can make your
Let's send again.
no problem.
Oh, sorry.
Right. So,
Send that. And there you go, now you're there. So something, here, I'll go downstairs and help you. Actually, well, anyone else need help? You're good?
all right. I think everybody's any last questions before I forget, did I have it up?
So, I wanted to mention something, how I have this set up. Do any of you know about like serverless functions, things like that?
Yeah.
So serverless functions are basically stateless servers. They spin up when they request is sent to them. They do whatever it is they were meant to do, and then they shut themselves down, right? So when you're making all these calls to the server, you see that the list of students was getting bigger, and then at some point, it all disappeared and went back to the original state that it was in. That's because the serverless function basically is like, oh, it's time to shut down, and it killed the state. So it reset the entire database, and that's why you might have seen it's just like, oh, I originally got back my ID of like 11, 15, 19, and then we went to go validate it, it wasn't there anymore. So just like a limitation of how it was deployed. Kind of perfect for like a scenario like this. where
Right, we're not
data
using a
doesn't stay
database
there.
at all right now.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think everybody got the post. So put is updating a student. If y'all want to try updating, well, is there more than 2 students in here? All right, delete your own student again. So that we're not all trying to do the same thing. Try deleting your own student or updating your own student. So if you want to update, right, it's going to be the same fields, but just change the value that you're interested in changing. For instance, the email. And delete, Ryan, how did you code? What are they expecting for delete? An ID?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So delete. It's delete by.
By the ID.
Can you put it back up?
Yeah, so it's this.
Put the call back
Oh,
up.
you want the ID?
Yes.
Here you go.
Yes. So you don't need to actually send a body. So I don't want to intimidate nor fool you about APIs. Real world APIs and responses you get back are much more complicated, but you kind of got to start somewhere with your learning and then build upon that, right? So there's obviously a lot more nuance. But once you get into more nuanced stuff, you can do more exciting things than like what we're doing right now, so. Does anybody want help with the last put and delete, or we'll move on to the last little bit? Just raise your hand if you want someone to come look. Okay.
Yeah, oh, I see some people missing.
So some people are deleting. Good job, guys. Again, this is not something that most people learn very quickly, but again, it's because they make it way more complicated than it needs to be when they're teaching technical concepts and give you all this like bullshit theory and vocabulary that you can learn as you go or learn later on, right? Now you've actually made an API call. You can actually speak semi-intelligently about one.
Yeah, and if you guys want to do this like yourselves, like someone to host a website or like a little API like this, you can use things like Firebase. That's by Google. They offer a free tier. You can host an application up to like a gig or something like that. And then there's also Netlify. That's what I'm using. So you can use that. It'll host your front end. It'll host your back end. They even have a database that you can hook up. And if you want a free database, you can use something like MongoDB Atlas. They give you 500 megabytes for free that you can use, and it's accessible from anywhere.
Thank you, Ryan. You might want to back up my, yes, please.
Do you want to look back?
I'll figure it out. Thank you very much. Okay, so we already installed Postman. We already did our API request. So we're more or less done with the hands-on portion, and I'm not going to bore you with a bunch more slides because an hour and a half is a long time to sit. I'll also send you or Sophia the link to this, so, right. It's just so that you have it. But again, we talk about making API calls in code. We're talking about Python in this session just because a lot of people know Python, but every language is going to have their own library typically for handling API calls, so you don't have to literally code this from scratch. And if you don't know what a library is, it's code that someone else built and made publicly available. So you just boop, install it into your project, and oh, okay, now I get to write way less code to do the same thing. In this case, with Python, the library that you're going to use for API calls is called the requests library. So that's definitely one you want to know and become familiar with. We install it in we use it in our project using an import statement if it's already installed. So again, make sure you install the library before trying to use it. You're going to want to store the URL that you're using for the API call. So again, we just did like get students, whatever. That's what we put here. And we'd probably name it something better than URL, but this is my very baby example. And then finally, this is where we're making the actual API call. So when we're making the API call, we have to store it in a variable, right? Because otherwise we can't see what it responded back with, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the call. We use the request library. When we use a period, that basically makes available all of the functionality within that library. So we can see get is the get API call we learned. If you want to do a post, you get a .post. And then just boop, put in the body. So again, it gets more complicated, but that's the gist of what you're going to do when you do it in code in Python. There are a number of free APIs you can practice with. Not all APIs are free. Sometimes you gotta apply for them. Sometimes you gotta pay money. Again, these will both be in the presentation, but there's just a lot you can play around with, and I'll give you that later so you can. And I would also recommend, before graduating, depending on the kind of role you want to have, if you actually want to do software development work, becoming familiar with some real-world APIs that are commonly used. So in every software development job I've had so far, I've had to use SendGrid for sending and receiving emails. It's just a pain in the ass to code yourself, and this service is freely available. You can do like so many emails for free. I think every company basically uses that. You want to become familiar with APIs that are used for payment systems. So all of my experience in software development has been at startups. We're typically using the Stripe API or PayPal API. You can create developer accounts that give you like fake credit cards and like let you practice doing transactions. OpenAI, so AI APIs are becoming a big thing. Any AI platform that you're used to using probably has an API that you can play around with. And all these fancy AI applications that are being developed are usually just calling one of these APIs and then just presenting it beautifully to you in the application. Of course, there's many others. And this is the end of it. This is just, if you want to dive deeper, because the point of this is that you know what the crap this is, and you start being interested in using them, and you learn more. So here's AI prompts to learn all of the technical stuff for when you're in an interview and you need to actually use the proper terminology for things. But unless you have specific questions or want to do anything in our last minutes, this is all I have for you. So thank you very much for entertaining this.
Did anybody have any questions for Erica? Well, yeah, thank you all so much.
I'm also online as Erica the Dev on most platforms, so if you have a question or just whatever, want to shoot the shit, just let us know. Yeah. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.